Now, do you find that the more the council allows developers to chop up inner city land, the more we become attached to our past, and the settlers who shaped part of East Brisbane's history will be celebrated. They're having a Tingalpa Pioneer Dinner, which I just think more and more of this type of thing is going on in the suburbs. And I've got Marianne Taylor on the line, house detective, and I spoke to Marianne a while ago, and I loved your bit on lighthouses on your Facebook page, Marianne.
Oh, thanks so much, Claire. I call myself a history nerd as well as a house detective because I love all things history. But Brisbane historic houses is definitely a focus of mine.
Yeah. Well, yeah, actually, if you want to follow Marianne on Facebook, Marianne Taylor, house detective and history nerd. And you know a little bit more about this Cannon Hill family and history. It's quite interesting, isn't it?
It's really interesting, actually. So they were one of the Whedon family who were being celebrated as part of the pioneer event you mentioned. They were actually one of the first families to settle in that area. So they were from the mid sort of 1860s. They were in the Cannon Hill area. And that was really the first time the government started selling off land. So they closed down the penal settlement, and then they started selling off Commonwealth land in the early 1860s. And families like the Whedons bought up the land, and often, that was probably considered a fair way out of town at the time. And they went on to build a beautiful big house called Cannon Hill House, actually. And there's a lovely description here in the newspaper when they were selling it in 1889, if you'd like me to read a little bit about that.
Love it.
Sure, it's really paints the picture. So, real estate sales hasn't really changed. So it describes it as this desirable residence up on a hill consisting of the most substantial 10-roomed house with verandas, kitchen, storerooms, wash house, large and commodious stables, coach house and man's room, stock and mulch yards, underground tank, and one of the finest orchards around Brisbane.
Isn't that lovely? The coach house is now the carport.
Yeah, it's just a wonderful description, and by all accounts, the grounds were spectacular as well. It had around 4 acres of land, which obviously you do not see in inner city Cannon Hill these days.
Well, yeah, it's funny. It probably is considered inner city. There's so many unit blocks going up in that area now.
There is, and this house was situated on Lytton Road, which I guess is a focus for development as well, being a major road. So it would have been interesting to see a picture of what that area looked like back when this house was for sale. I imagine it would have still been largely rural at the time.
Amazing! I love those old pictures. Obviously, you love them too, but it came to get burnt down later, didn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. In 1926, it was out of the Whedon's ownership, I believe, but it burnt down around that time. And being a timber house, it didn't take too long, by all accounts, to disappear. So that's a bit of a shame.
No, they go up quickly, those old Queenslanders, don't they? But it is a shame because they're disappearing all over the place, even though some are protected. There are, and I think you and I spoke about it last time when you were on with Kevin, that you can apply to have a house knocked down, and it's happening all over the place, even if they are pre-war.
Yeah, sometimes they can be knocked down. It depends really on the application, I think, and under the Planning Act, it's supposed to be only if they're beyond structural repair. So I think sometimes that case can be argued. I mean, these houses are quite old and some of them have suffered a lot of damage. But, yeah, it's a bit of a tricky situation. They're obviously in very expensive areas these days, and you can make a lot of money from developing the site and also house a lot more people on the same size lot. So, yeah, it's tricky to find that balance, as we did discuss.
Not many coach houses and commodious stables in the units that they're putting up on Lytton Road now, though, aren't they, Marianne?
No, definitely not. I guess there's not many coaches owned by those people. But, yeah, I think that, underground parking, multi-level parking car parks have replaced the old coach house down the backyard.
I mean, this is part of what you do, Marianne. You can find out the history of someone's house. If somebody has a house and they don't know about it, then you can trawl through and get lots of information for them. Are people thrilled and sometimes shocked about what they find?
Definitely. So, each house is totally different. I never know what I'm going to find. I can sort of find basic things about who owned the land and that type of thing. But as for the personal stories that come out and the quirky people that live there, you never know what you're going to find. So people are usually a little bit unnerved when they find out someone's actually died in the house, although that was quite common back in the day. So I think they tend to worry about ghosts a little bit then. But I've never seen a ghost yet. So.
Okay. My kids are always saying that too. Oh, no, somebody died in the house. But I said to kids, it's part of life, and you are lucky if you die in your own bed. That's a good way to go, as long as there's no pain, yeah. I guess you come across that. And when are people most interested in finding out about their house? Is when they purchase it, or they're about to renovate it, or when they've just renovated it?
Probably when they've just purchased it. People like to find out a bit more about the history. But as you say, when they're undertaking renovations, and that's part of what I do as well, provide advice on heritage buildings and the best, most sympathetic and best practice for altering houses to, maintain the sympathetic design to the original. So it's probably a combination of both, but sometimes it's just people who've wanted to know about their house for ages, who finally get in touch with me and decide that they don't have the time to do it, so they'll get me to do it for them. And most people want to find maybe specific things. Often it's when the house was built, or if it had an original name, so they can put a nameplate up on it after they renovate it, and those types of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I often find it's the stories of the people that live there that are quite interesting. So,
does any spring to mind? Your most outrageous find?
Oh, look, I've researched a house where it was this amazing woman who basically stole all her husband's money and ran away from him and relocated from New South Wales to Queensland and turned herself into a bit of a property mogul, actually, and bought up all these properties and became quite wealthy off money she originally stole from her husband. So, yeah, I would have liked to have met that woman, I think.
Sounds a bit like The Main Inheritance.
It does sound a bit like that, yeah.
Very familiar. It's great talking to you, and we might get you back on to tell us some other stories later, Marianne. But if you're really interested in this South Brisbane historical dinner too, you can go to that. It's a Tingalpa Pioneers dinner. If you're a history lover, I think you'd be into that. It's a dinner. It's 6:00 and tickets are $45. Details, if you'd like to be a part of that, is 33969472. Great talking to you, Marianne. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Claire. Bye.
Marianne Taylor. She is house detective and history nerd here on 4BC.